All right. How are you doing, Tom? Welcome to Pipekit Office Hours. So I'm joined by Tim and Alan, and today we have a small agenda to talk about. So we could go over the suspend templates, and then also we can dive into your questions as well. Which would you like to do first? We could go over your questions, or we could talk a little bit about suspend templates first.
Yeah, main reason for joining us is to learn a little bit more, but also I came with a few questions if, to help with content or anything like that. So, not sure the way you want to run it.
Yeah, let's have you just dive in with your questions in that case,
Yeah.
for the sake of time. So yeah, I'll turn it over to you. What's top of mind? What can we help with?
Well, I've been looking at implementing my current assignment for work, implementing Argo workflows with Argo Events, and I've been trying to see, well, because for our small proof of concept at the moment, we've got everything running in a single namespace with Argo Events. Um, but I eventually want to scale that up and ideally have separate namespaces for different groups of workflows, so like basically different teams that want to run workflows with events. Um, and I believe that you have to create like an event bus object in every namespace. However, that event bus can refer to an actual instance somewhere else in the cluster, I think. But just managing that is where all the questions come up for me. And I haven't found any good guides or documentation to sort of run through the way that you would do this kind of setup, unless it's maybe a different approach I should take. But the main goal is to get multiple namespaces, but with a single event bus.
I don't think you need separate event buses, do you, Alan? I was just trying to look it up.
They're really good, and it's slightly
You can certainly use the exotic event bus to refer to an existing event bus if you deploy events in multiple namespaces. But if you run a single event bus, can you then have sensors across the whole cluster?
I don't
Alan,
know.
we are getting a bit of background noise, so I'm going to ask you to ride the mute button.
So Mrs. Allen behind you.
Yep.
I don't know. I'm just looking at a previous deployment to see if I've done that.
My understanding is that you need an event bus object like resource in that namespace. However, you can then use the exotic type to refer back to an actual running instance of it somewhere else. But, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my understanding from what I've achieved so far.
I missed your question because I was trying to make things quiet. You want to get an event bus to refer to another Jetstream installation,
Yeah.
effectively. So that's using the exotic event bus type, and that certainly is possible.
Because the next challenge I faced was setting up the config maps for the credentials for sensors to be able to connect to that event bus.
So are you using any management tool, e.g. Argo CD, to manage all this up?
I'm using Argo CD, yeah.
So you could do, depends how you want it to look in Argo CD, but you could do either a app of apps or a app set, an application set to deploy the same thing into lots of namespaces and sort of trivially make a list of namespaces that you wish to manage in this way. And then you just add to the list and Argo CD will pick that up as part of the, I would do it with an application set if I was doing it myself. So have an application set that refers to the secrets and the exotic installation. And then that's the thing that you would apply to every namespace that you want to have events in. But Tim might be able to suggest a different way of doing this.
No, I'm sat here agreeing with you. Yeah, I would also do an app set.
No, I meant whether you can run events cross cluster without running lots of event buses.
Yeah, that I don't know. I was just trying to look up a previous installation and I can't find it, so I can't remember. Which probably means no.
I will have a quick look while we're talking.
Yeah, because I think, as far as I'm aware, I saw like the config map with the credentials created in the namespace at the event bus. The actual implementation of it is created, and so I guess my question is, if I do use Argo CD to propagate it, would I actually have to generate my own credentials externally for it to then override that form? Or is there some way that I can duplicate an existing one?
No, you'd have to, because Argo CD can only take
Yeah.
from Git, or unless you go some exotic way of, I shouldn't use the word exotic, we've already got a meaning for exotic.
Yeah,
Unless you go some mad way of using a plugin for Argo CD, or so there are projects around that do cloning of secrets between namespaces. I forget them because I've never used one, but yes, your a sort of healthy way of doing it is to inject it everywhere from an external source.
Okay.
I
But
thought-
I guess sorry, continue. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I thought Kyverno was one of those tools, but I might be confusing it with something else which sounds similar. Frantically Googling and trying to talk to you at the same time.
No, Kyverno is the less evil APA.
Yeah. It's
think.
something like that, but
It
not
is.
that. Yeah.
And maybe if I'm using external secret software at the moment, maybe that's got something in place to be able to do that. I have to explore, but otherwise I'll find a tool.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I'll be very. If external secrets operator can do it, I'd love to know. So please let us know in Slack.
Because then this question is also going to extend into the idea of using the new Jetstream bus, because at the moment we're using the default implementation, the old NATS one. But I tried to then switch to the Jetstream version, but then the sensors couldn't connect to the event bus because the credential provisioning isn't something that happens automatically, it seems. And I was also struggling to find any information into how to succeed at this. Maybe I had something wrong with my setup and it's supposed to just work, but I wonder if there was anything special I had to do.
I don't know. It should. My use of Jetstream has been. I like it, but I have not struggled with this. Did you switch from? Did you have an existing event bus and just tell it switch from legacy NATS to NATS Jetstream with the same name as the event bus?
That sounds highly likely. That's what I did.
Yeah. Yes. I wonder if you need to sort of recreate the other components in order to get them to properly connect. That would be my guess. From other bits of events don't work as you'd hope, as in you can recreate bits of events with the same name and they don't work as you'd hope, like sensors and stuff if you change them in the wrong way.
Okay, I'll give it another go from like a fresh install, so to speak, and see what happens.
Yeah. My limited testing of Jetstream for events hasn't had that problem, so.
Okay.
But yeah, I have experienced weirdness with just fiddling with events.
Yeah, well, thanks for the information. This sort of wraps up my initial questions around this. So I think I'll take that away and see how far I get, and then yeah, maybe I'll come back with some more.
Sounds good. Are there any other items that you want to dive into, even not related to like Argo events or event buses?
Not Argo Events specifically. There might be some other topics. I got like a long list of things to like research and look into, but I'll shelve it for now and maybe I'll bring it up later on.
Feel free to just run us the list. You can share your screen if you'd like. The other thing we were going to talk about is suspend templates, which are cool, but if you've got an item, we would much rather
we want to
solve
talk about your
issues.
stuff. Yeah.
If we do. Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to talk about suspend items.
They're fun, but we've already spoken.
Let's see then. One thing I did notice actually looking around, it might not be relevant anymore actually, but there were a lack of CRD schemas for the spec section of a lot of the, I think, Argo workflow, maybe it was Argo Events, I forgot which project exactly. But when I do like a kubectl explain of some of these resources, I wasn't actually getting anything back. Is this ringing any bells, or is it confusing?
It does. I think it might be both. It might be both Argo workflows and Argo events don't have full descriptors on them. I think we've chatted about this before, haven't we, Alan? Just you and I mean.
The CRDs. Yeah, the CRDs that are actually put into the CRDs are too big for workflows. So they are just the minimal CRDs, unfortunately, because that means you can put almost any old YAML you like in as a workflow, and it will just, there are validation points, but it basically, it's complete bollocks. And that's not good. That's the technical term.
I was going to say that's, yeah.
We really should add a validating webhook for it, just to sanitize that it's not the technical term. Yeah, but as it just got too big, and I think somebody somewhere in the non-distant past bypassed the problem. I've got 2 cups of tea now, so
Nice.
I'm
Can I have one?
there we are.
It's a happy Englishman.
Yeah, I don't know about events. I haven't looked at the CRDs for that. I'm surprised that they're too big. So maybe just somebody copied the makefile from workflows that deletes the relevant bits. But yeah, it's unfortunate. If you submit workflows through most sort of non-kubectl ways, as in through the user interface or Argo CLI, then, which I don't do so, but if you do that, then there is a validator in those which helps.
Okay, yeah, I think I first came across it with like the YAML linting just in the IDE. Like I'd be writing incorrect YAML and trying to debug things, and it turns out there's an S missing because it's plural name or something like that. So then I discovered that it was just taking any object rather than something structured, so that which saves some headache. And also, what I've been looking into lately is using Q as a configuration language to write these things. Don't know if you guys know about that project, but it is able to generate schemas, at least off Go code. But I think it does require those to be well defined as those schemas would then, I guess, usually be exported into those CRD schemas as well. So I'm not sure if that's going to be compatible.
The Go code schema is full and complete and does have stuff in it. It's just it gets stripped for the version that goes into the cluster because of the the 1 meg limit on etc.d, which effectively is half that size. And yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I just had a quick look at Argo events, and yeah, it doesn't seem to have it either. But it does have a validating webhook, of course. So they're 1 step ahead of us, I guess.
Yeah, well, that wraps up that question for me as well. So it's good to know the reason why, I think. So I should be looking to, I guess, third-party tools to help me find those mistakes before I get there.
Yeah, could you post us a link to your queue tool?
Yeah, absolutely. Something that'll be eventually quite good to have is, well, they're just working on modules for this language, and eventually you'd be able to just publish your schemas as Q modules, which can be imported into your own project. And so it'd be nice to have, like, once this is released out of alpha, an Argo module that has all the schemas for the Argo projects.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good.
We're all just reading a website now, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty exciting project from my perspective. What I like about it is you could define schema, data, and policy all at once. It's all considered data. So like your data type, your policy, and your actual concrete data is all the same syntactical item. And so I've also been looking at how to write a management plugin for this with Argo CD as well, of course, to prevent a build step in between. I think I saw a project out there of someone already trying that. So.
You're on mute, Alan.
You can sell our plugin. What are you trying to do in our plugin? In your plugin?
Well, I haven't started working on one yet, but the idea would be that it would just be a custom management plugin that will basically read the queue files directly from the source repository and then generate that YAML stream that Argo CD understands to then apply.
If it behaves vaguely sanely, you might be able to plug it into the plugin that Tim and I wrote, which he's put in the chat. Lovely plugin that sort of basically takes command line tools and makes them Argo CD config management plugin plugins. You can sort of configure it to do a bunch of things. So have a look, it might save you some time.
So anything basically that you can run one command line tool and it will put a YAML stream to stand it out. Is that the idea?
Yeah, it can take either, it can do transformations to stand it out or to, if it does it on disk. So sometimes you need to run multiple things that can only read from disk. So it can do both on disk to on disk or on disk to stand it out or standard in to stand it out.
Okay.
So if you decide you want to play with it and play with Q, you could even submit a PR for adding it as a variant that a pre-built variant of Lovely with Q built in.
Okay, I'll look into this. Thank you.
All right, Tom, any more items on the list?
Not on the well-curated list. So I'm
If
happy to
there's
hear
a
about what you
less
talk about.
well, yeah, curated list, feel free to just send it, man.
Yeah, I will do. But at the moment, you'll just be waiting for me to peruse my notes to find the questions I've left hanging for myself. So I'll save the trouble.
All right, sounds good. Tim, Alan, do y'all want to dive into suspend templates within Slack? No, looks like that is less than enthusiastic from Tim. Alan, how about yourself? You look quite content with T. Suspend templates.
Content with T. What are suspend templates? They are a node within your workflow that suspends, pauses the workflow at that point indefinitely until a resume request comes in from the outside world. So you can use them to do something outside your workflow. You could get approvals done. You could get something that you can't really write very well in a workflow, or where you don't want to hold a workflow pod running for long periods of time. And then you need to make an authenticated API call effectively back to the Argo server, and you can pass data in that as parameters back through your suspend. So that was, we talked, somebody in Slack was having problems wanting to be able to do something very similar to what suspend does. So that's what we were going to discuss. Anything to add, Tim, or anyone?
No, I thought it was probably just worth. Well, I don't think we've spoken about them before here, so I thought it was probably worth mentioning that they exist, just in case anyone comes across it on YouTube.
And
We
just,
also have, or
sorry.
continue, Tom, yes.
I was just saying, just to clarify the concept, so that it doesn't keep a running pod, that the suspension is handled within the controller itself, or the server, I'm not sure which component, but
Within the controller, yeah.
controller, okay.
And then you can have other pods that are in existence while the suspend template is suspended, so you can suspend one half of your DAG waiting for stuff to happen. Yeah.
All right, Tom, any more items perusing through your notes?
Well, probably things that could be answered by documentation, to be honest. But one thing that I'm also going to be working on soon is to make workflow metrics available in the cluster, like workflow level metrics. So those things like duration and all that sort of thing. But because of what we're doing is building a platform for other people to deploy their workflows onto, and we want certain things to obviously be there by default. So my understanding is if we want all these workflow level metrics to be there by default, we would create a workflow template defining those, and they'll be inherited on the user side if we enforce that usage of that template. Is that the way to go when you want to enforce cluster-wide workflow metrics?
Broadly, yes. It's the answer we can go very deep here, but we won't go too deep. It may not. It really depends on exactly what metrics you want to get. Some metrics you can gather using kind of just normal Prometheus queries against pods. Every workflow pod has magic labels on it, so you can filter by the right labels to get quite a lot of the data that you need. And in some situations, that might be the only way that you can do it. If you, I'm just trying to think of an example. If you want to group workflow runs by a specific group name or something like that, there's no way to really template that at the top level. So you sort of have to come in from the side via Prometheus. But in general, yes, the right approach is to put things in workflow defaults. It's probably worth.
Tom was saying workflow templates rather than workflow defaults. I was just going to make sure that you've got workflow defaults, the magic word.
Yeah, yes, workflow defaults are very different from workflow templates. So yes, I'll be putting them in the workflow defaults if you can. From memory, if they're in the template and you invoke the template, they won't get run, will they, Alan? Can't remember now. Workflow template, sorry.
They certainly will if it's a workflow template ref
Yes,
top level template. You can have metrics on sub templates, I believe. You can certainly have them for the real-time metrics.
Yes, that's true. Okay.
So I think you can have them on everything. I should know more about this than I pretending to.
I was going to say, so Alan is currently working on a bunch of workflow metrics improvements for 3.6.
I'm not sure it's going to get it into 3.6, to be honest.
No, it's a bit annoying, but hopefully we'll get there. Yeah. So I don't know if you've seen the PR for that or the issue for that. It's probably worth having a quick look. I don't know if you've got the ID handy, Anna, because it'll be a breaking change to how metrics work. So you probably, if you can, want to wait for that to come on board before you start doing metric stuff, because otherwise you'll end up having to do it twice.
But I imagine it wouldn't. Will it change the scraped metrics, or would it just change the way you define the metric availability?
It changes the actual metrics that are delivered.
Okay, yeah, okay, then that would be.
And it might give you some of the answers that you might be after by default out of the box at the controller level.
Okay, yeah, because that was the other question. When I saw that I had to define them on a workflow level, because first I thought it would just be on the controller. When I started to define them, my assumption was that had to be done to prevent a large amount of metrics being generated without having a way to opt out or having to opt out in the first place. Was that like the design reason, you think, or is it just?
It was probably before our time, but it is certainly inefficient in its current form.
Yeah.
So yes, that wouldn't surprise me that was the design decision. But as I say, it's sort of. I don't know if JP was around when that happened, but I think it was probably even before your time, JP.
I think it does predate me.
Know.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, the original workflow metrics, I'm not sure what the specific use case for I think the person who wrote the original controller level metrics, the default ones, was hoping they covered most use cases, and then somebody added the Prometheus metrics blocks that you could put in, hoping they were useful for some use cases that we don't necessarily understand, and then people are using workflow defaults to do the thing you and us and other people do to try and get those metrics that are missing at the controller level. So that's the point of the issue I've just linked to you. It is well in progress. It works. I'm just at the point where I need to do a load of testing changes to fix up, and I've got a lot of other priorities at the moment, so it's not getting done as quickly as I'd like. But if you've got any feedback at all, including if some of the new metrics or the outcome of what's presented there doesn't look like what you would like, please comment in that issue, because adding more or changing them or tweaking them is certainly possible.
Okay, now I'll take a look. So is there any information there after the quick scan on the sort of the dimensionality of those metrics? Because I think like having labels pertaining to the workflow template or some kind of grouping, because my use case would be to let's say have a dashboard of a particular template of workflows, and I want to see their durations.
So yes,
for example.
So the durations and the counts for these new ones both get a namespace label and if it's invoked as a workflow template ref, there is a metric that is done by workflow template ref as one of the labels as well. So yeah, the idea is that you can monitor namespace wise, workflow template ref wise. There is a future desire to have more arbitrary grouping of workflows, so that you can just sort of use labeling to group workflows and then use that to form groups, that the use of which would be in metrics as well. So you could have this group of this group of workflows is taking this long, whatever.
Yeah,
but that's a separate change from this one. Workflow templates are the only grouping, and namespace are the only two groupings I'm attempting to implement directly. I would also, once this is done, like to do tracing for workflows. So that would then give you a trace per workflow. You don't have to expose those as traces. You could then use tracing to metrics in your OpenTelemetry collector to convert the traces into appropriate metrics. So you could then do pod level metrics, pod pending durations, if you're really interested in that kind of thing. Whatever you want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, good to know there'll be room to grow into it once the platform gets that level. But I think at the moment the users just be interested in how long have they been taking to run and when did they fail, when did they succeed. So that kind of thing is something that I think this will cover by the looks of it.
Yeah, it counts when they enter each phase as well, so you'd be able to count them going into succeeded to know when they're completing, or failing, or whatever.
I do have a follow-up question going back towards the idea of workflow defaults and templates. What is the override structure of this? Because I understand that workflow templates, as you chain them, I think the latest one will overlay values of the previous one. So that assumption is correct. And workflow defaults, is that the very first part of the chain, or does that get placed later?
I think that's the very first part from memory.
I think it should be. Let's put it that way.
Some of these things are not chained as you might hope, and so if you've got like a 4 deep template and you've defined something in the second 1 deep, it may not actually apply at all to the 4th 1 deep. It sometimes applies to just the template that it's in or the top level. The code is erratic in how it implements chaining effectively, and it's bug I'd like to switch it so that it's consistent.
Is it to do the difference between merging maps and replacing maps?
No, those should, I believe, be consistent for each thing. They should get merged. As far as I'm aware, they all do, but it's an issue if they don't. They should be doing merging. It's not generally doing replacing.
Right. And there's no, well, I guess there is, I would say, like a utility for seeing what the outcome is, but I guess the answer to that is just run the workflow and see what's in the cluster, right? See how it gets applied.
Yes. So what you can do is, if you're still confused, the expanded templates are put into the status block of the workflow run. So the workflow will have the templates expanded into the bottom of it, because what you don't want to do is use a template twice within the same workflow and discover that it's changed in between the first and second invocation of it, and therefore get weird results. So they get expanded into there in order for reuse, but you can also then inspect them, which is handy for debugging what's going on.
Right. Cool.
All right. Tom, we are a bit over time, so we're gonna end it there. But thanks for showing up and having great questions. This was fun working through it with you.
No, thanks so much for your time, and sorry for taking that extra time there, but appreciate it.
Seriously, we appreciate it. We'd much rather you come engaged than not. So thank you.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody, and I'll see you around.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.
Yeah.
See you.